Welcome, everyone, to the Apoco-Larry podcast. I'm Steve, and he is.
Was I not the Reverend last week?
Yes, you were.
I'm the doctor.
Yes,
The
we are back on the pedestal.
Yes, not just a doctor, but the doctor.
The doctor is in.
Yes. Because this is a fairly simple verse, so I don't think I'll fumble. I don't think I'll fumble the ball so badly this time.
No. My friend, here we are in the middling sections of 2 Samuel. Anything you want to say about chapter 9?
No. This is just another example of how much David actually cared about Saul and Jonathan, and doing things right before the Lord. I think those three things.
Okay.
He really was, in these early days, and probably all through his life, a man of integrity, which we may not believe in a couple of chapters from now.
A couple chapters from now, we might ask some questions.
Yeah, but this is him showing kindness for Jonathan's sake.
Okay.
Yeah. His very, very good friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to say his name too, by the way. I'm going to try, but I can't hear it in my head any longer.
Mephibosheth.
Yes. Okay. Chapter 9, starting at verse 1. David asked, "Is there anyone still left of the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake?" Now there was a servant of Saul's household named Ziba. He summoned him to appear before David, and the king said to him, "Are you Ziba?" "At your service," he replied. The king asked, "Is there no one still alive from the house of Saul to whom I can show God's kindness?"
It almost sounds like a Charles Dickens thing, doesn't it? Yeah. At your service, your servant, sir.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah, that's right. It makes me
He might have been scared, but it doesn't ever say that.
Yeah.
At your service, don't kill me.
Yeah.
Please don't kill me.
Yeah. You don't have a spear, do you? Because the last guy I worked for, not good.
Not good. Fortunately, he had no aim at all. But.
That's right. He was one of the red-shirted guys in Star Trek. Sorry. Anyway, or a stormtrooper. Anyway, Ziba answered the king, "There is still a son of Jonathan. He is lame in both feet." "Where is he?" the king asked. Ziba answered, "He is at the house of Machir, son of Amiel, in Lo-debar." Not El-debar or something like that. Anyway, so King David had brought him from Lo-debar, from the house of Machir, to the son of Amiel. When Mephibosheth, close, son of David, the son of Saul, came to David, he bowed down to pay him honor. David said, "Mephibosheth," oh gosh, "at your service," he replied. "Do not be afraid," David said to him, "for surely I will show kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan. I will restore to you all the land that belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will always eat at my table."
See, so he finds Mephibosheth. This is the crippled boy, and I think it was earlier on. It talked about his nurse when in her haste to get out, she dropped him and messed up his feet. Nowadays you could fix that, but in those days there wasn't much you could do.
Right.
So David says, "Well, man, like bring the son before me. Bring this guy before me." Brings him before him. And he pays David honor. Now, I don't know if he also thought that David might want to kill him.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But anyway, very quickly he finds out that David's going to actually restore everything that belonged to Saul. Like that's a massive amount of land.
You're right.
Unless he meant Saul's private holdings, which would also be huge.
Right.
Yeah. And he says, "You'll always eat at my table," which I don't know if that means that he always ate at his table or just that's the honor. I mean, anytime you want to eat at my table, you can.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
Mephibosheth bowed down and said, "What is your servant that you should notice a dead dog like me?"
Yeah, nice comment, eh? Nice humble.
Yeah.
Why are you helping the little crippled boy?
Right.
And yeah.
Then the king summoned Ziba, Saul's steward, and said to him, "I have given your master's grandson everything that belonged to Saul and his family. You and your sons and your servants are to farm the land for him and bring in the crops, so that your master's grandson will be provided for. And Mephibosheth, grandson of your master, will always eat at my table." Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants.
Yeah, so this is one of the interesting things. None of these guys are poor.
No.
Like Ziva was one of these servants. You think he was just kind of like a guy that hung around and helped out, but he wasn't. He was wealthy in his own right.
Yeah, he was no Mr. Carson. He had wealth.
Yeah, he had 15 servants.
Yeah.
That's I would consider 15 servants fairly substantial, and
Yes.
and his own kids, and so farming the land would have brought him wealth as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of
Uh,
nice. It's a nice story.
it is a nice story. Verse 11. Then Ziba said to the king, your servant will do whatever my lord the king commands his servant to do. So Mephibosheth ate at David's table like one of the king's sons. Mephibosheth, could we say it anymore, by the way, had a
Yeah,
young son
keep saying
named
it.
Micah, and all the members of Ziba's household were servants of Mephibosheth. And Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem because he always ate at the king's table. He was lame in both feet.
Yeah, interesting little kind of side note there to mention again that he was lame in both feet. But it does sound like he actually just lived in David's palace the whole time. And I don't know if that's true or if that's just a way of saying, David really looked after this guy.
Right.
And they say it's really one of the beautiful stories of redemption in the scripture. You know,
Yeah.
David redeemed this guy, gave him everything that he would have had anyway, maybe more. Now Ishbosheth was also his brother,
Mm,
and Ishbosheth was the one that was killed.
mm,
But David never would have killed Ishbosheth. Remember,
yeah.
those other guys killed him, and then they came back to David, or some guys came back to David, and he had them all killed.
Right.
Just
Right.
like the guy who said that he was there when Saul died, and David had him killed. Yeah,
So maybe
yeah,
there's good reason why M says, hang on, M and Ziba are like, what are you
yeah,
about to do
yeah,
here?
yeah. Like I don't know what's going to happen here, and it's really a beautiful story, and it's a big contrast to what happens in the very next chapter, which we might just as well do, right?
Sure.
Like we'll just keep on going here because this is David defeating the Ammonites. The
Yes.
Ammonites are descendants of Lot.
Good point.
Remember Moab and Ammon were, and so the Moabites and the Ammonites. Both of them are nothing but trouble
Yeah.
for Israel. So
Yeah.
so anyway, it's a gorgeous story. This story of Mephibosheth, and Mephibosheth actually stands for David for the rest of his life. From the things that I read, I thought Mephibosheth didn't, but it says others were going against David, but Mephibosheth stood with David.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, good story.
Okay.
Like I would look after your kids if you died, but now they're married, they're okay. But
Yeah.
just so
Well,
you know.
yeah, I'm there for your daughter too.
Yeah, now that they're old enough that we don't have to do anything about it, I would tell you that I would have.
Yeah, but we still got that crisscross thing going on, right?
Oh, crisscross is
Yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Except now we told it in our podcast.
Oh
Now,
no!
now
Oh
no,
no!
no, no. If there happens to be a policeman listening,
We didn't say a word.
not a
Okay.
word. So
So
now David defeats the Ammonites. Yeah.
yeah, so like Larry said, let's turn the page, and now we'll go to chapter 10, and let's start there. In the course of time, the king of the Ammonites died, and his son Hanun succeeded him as king. David thought, I will show kindness to Hanun, king of or son of Nahash, just as his father showed kindness to me. So David sent a delegation to express his sympathy to Hanun concerning his father. When David's men came to the land of the Ammonites, the Ammonite commander said to Hanun, their lord, do you think David is honoring your father by sending envoys to you to express sympathy? Hasn't David sent them to you only to explore the city and spy it out and overthrow it? So Hanun seized David's envoys, shaved off half of each man's beard, which would have been hugely, hugely offending, right? Offensive. Cut off their garments at the buttocks. Wow. And sent them away.
Yeah. So this is interesting because David was actually wanting to do a kindness for the Ammonites, and because Nahash actually said that he had been decent to David, so David sends this delegation to show a kindness, and then the Ammonites, remember, they're the descendants of Lot.
Yeah.
The Moabites and the Ammonites were the descendants of Lot that always caused Israel trouble. But and sometimes they were together and sometimes apart,
Yep.
but more often than not, they were troublesome to the Israelites. And then these guys, maybe his men rightfully thought that David was trying to come in and take over, but nobody asked David to explain. And then they do this shameful thing
Yep.
to his men, right? And so now it really backfires on them, because David was going to be their friend, and now
Mm,
everything's going to turn.
not so quick. Okay, so verse 5. When David was told about this, he sent messengers to meet the men, for they were greatly humiliated. The king said, "Stay at Jericho until your beards have grown, and then come back." When the Ammonites realized they had become obnoxious to David, they hired 20,000 Aramean foot soldiers from Ben Herob and Zobah, as well as the king of Makkah, with 1,000 men and also 12,000 men from Tob.
Yeah. So mercenaries from all over. This is very common in ancient war, to have mercenaries. Remember, the Greeks were mercenaries for many years after they proved their prowess in battle. The Spartans, especially, they became mercenaries all over the world, or
Hmm,
all over the area. And the Swedes, oddly enough, were mercenaries for some of the popes.
hmm,
They were the guards for the popes for many years. These Swedish guys, and so that was very much later in time. But in the early time, also, everybody would just hire out soldiers,
hmm,
and that's what these guys did. And the Arameans, again, Aramaic is the language. They're the people from around Syria.
hmm, hmm.
So top part of Israel, up above, just above Israel,
Okay.
in the land. Yeah.
Okay, verse 7. On hearing this, David sent out Joab with the entire army of fighting men. The Ammonites came out and drew up in battle formation at the entrance of their city gate, while the Arameans, the Arameans of Zobah and of Rehob, and the men of Tob and Makkah were by themselves in the open country. Joab saw that there were battle lines in front of him and behind him, so he selected some of the best troops in Israel and deployed them against the Arameans. He put the rest of the men under the command of Abishai, his brother, and deployed them against the Ammonites. Joab said, "If the Arameans are too strong for me, then you are to come to my rescue. But if the Ammonites are too strong for you, I will come to your rescue. Be strong and let us fight bravely for our people and for the cities of our God. The Lord will do what is good in his sight."
Yeah, nice little battle plan, eh?
Yeah.
Like Joab is a professional soldier, so he knew how to split his army up appropriately, for these kind of battles.
Okay. Verse 13. Then Joab and the troops with him advanced to fight the Arameans, and they fled before him. When the Ammonites realized that the Arameans were fleeing, they fled before Abishai and went inside the city. So Joab returned from fighting the Ammonites and came to Jerusalem. After the Arameans saw that they had been routed by Israel, they regrouped. Hadadezer, something like that, had Arameans brought from beyond the Euphrates River, and they went to Hilam with Shobak, the commander of army leading them. When David was told of this, he gathered all Israel, crossed the Jordan, and went to Hilam. The Arameans formed their battle lines to meet David and fought against him. But they fled before Israel, and David killed 700 of their charioteers and 40,000 of their foot soldiers. He also struck down Shobak, the commander of their army, and he died there. When all the kings who were vassals of Hadazer, something like that, saw that they had been routed by Israel, they made peace with the Israelites and became subject to them. So the Arameans were afraid to help the Ammonites anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
We'll take a pass.
yeah. Smart move on their part.
Yeah.
But again, this is God is with David, and the crazy thing is, they could have had a great relationship with David. Instead, they misunderstood or misinterpreted what David was doing. They went to fight him, and now all of the guys that were giving to them are now subject to David and giving their money to David. And again, God is just completely protecting him. And man, the slaughter is huge, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and remember, people often argue about the numbers. They'll say, well, the numbers were never that high, but 40,000 is quite possible,
Yeah, that's a plausible number, right?
quite a plausible number, yeah.
Yeah.
And but people will argue numbers in scripture all the time.
Sure. Sure.
But I can accept this one without too much trouble at all.
Yeah.
And how many chariots was it? It was 700 chariots.
Yeah.
So basically wiped out their army.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now they're all kind of subject to him, and he's collecting money from all of them, tribute,
Right.
we would call it, from all of them. So so up to this point, everything David touches, like he's the golden boy, everything he touches is coming to pass, and he's being very clean and clear and honest before God, and
Yeah.
still helping Saul's family, like basically a really good guy.
Right. Right. Like that's how this chapter starts off, right? Of David extending a branch of kindness.
Yeah, to Joseph, to Jonathan's
Yeah.
it was Jonathan's son, right?
Yeah.
To Jonathan's son, and then later he's trying to do something very kind to Hanun,
Yeah.
and that just did not work out for Hanun's sake. And they don't mention how many of the Israelites died. Oftentimes they do, and this time they don't even say it.
Yeah.
And there's an outside chance nobody died.
Right.
So it's kind of intriguing that way. So
Mm.
there's David, like really being a good king.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, my friend. That was fantastic. Folks, once again, like Larry said, we see this character of David shine through. Even in war, you see this character of David shine through, of extending an olive branch, so to speak, and then saying, "Oh, seriously? You want to do this? Let's do this." And that's David. Folks, as always, we're so thankful that you listen. Encourages Larry and I greatly. And next week we'll be back. We're getting closer. I think there's a story coming about David and Bathsheba. So, we'll see a different side of David, but we'll get to that later. All right. Until then, I was Steve, he was Larry, and this was the Apoco-Larry podcast.